Welcome to the Big and Small podcast. I'm Jason Shields and I'm big.
And I'm Marit Gabrielsen, and I'm small.
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about the things that we're working with. So Marit, what's going on in your life? What are you working with lately?
I think I mentioned this on the introduction podcast, actually, that the last 9 months, a year now, we've been working a lot of emotional and not just mental training, but I call it emotional training because I think that's more a better word for it because I like training and it doesn't make it that scary. Mm-hmm. It's been many up and downs, and I've been in many processes around that. And I feel many of the processes have been pretty dark. They've been pretty not pleasant. They've been good in the way of experiencing, evolving, seeing more, and I'm winning more and more terrain, if you can call that. I'm expanding more and more, but at the same time, it's not very pleasant.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is very dark, or not dark necessarily, but perhaps heavy is a better word. Mm-hmm. I don't like to use the word negative because I don't look at anger or frustration and those negatively charged words as negative, because you can always use them for something good.
Yes.
And good meaning productive, meaning moving forward.
Right.
Not just kind of you are a good person.
Yeah.
But moving forward, good, evolving, good. And lately I've been working on a process where I feel I've been very inward focused, and inward focus doesn't mean ego focus necessarily, but it means inward going emotions, like depression and sadness and low energy emotions. That's kind of pulling inward, while happiness perhaps pull outwards. And you want to share and hug people. I've been more closed and working inward. And now I'm in a process where I feel like some days or in a period of days I'm really inward, but then all of a sudden I'm super happy and stoked and outward going, and I'm taking myself in feeling that that's unpleasant to not be inward going. And it's unpleasant. I'm feeling I'm cheating the suffering, if you want to call it that. I'm feeling I'm not working, or I'm not doing it because I should be suffering, or I should be working inward because I'm actually kind of in depression, if you want to call it that. And it's very interesting because I don't think my conscious self doesn't think that. Because my conscious self think that this is a way for me working through it and coming out to the other side. But I don't know if my ego and suffering in itself is saying, no, come here, come to the dark side. You know us. At least we're inward, and we are perhaps not that positive, but we are very known. And when you suffer, you also get a lot of attention, and you get a lot of love, and you get a lot of care. Because if you see a person that's not happy, not doing what they perhaps love, not being what they usually are.
Yeah.
You give them also a lot of attention and love and care. So it's also a positive side with being in that sadness, inward going.
Correct.
Emotions.
Yeah, people don't put a lot of responsibility on you at that point.
No, far from it.
And they celebrate anything you're managing to do as well. Yeah.
I've been in the last months. I have my peer group, and I've been so well taken care of. They're taking so well care of me, and they always do. But kind of no, it's extra because yes, Marit, she's kind of working with something, and I don't know right now. I said if it's the suffering that kind of, and the ego that kind of wants to stay there, because it's kind of, at least you always get that text message that attention.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
attention, love, supports, interest.
All of that.
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting from the conscious perspective of it, that this is happening. And although I'm conscious about it, I'm having this duality in me where, again, when I'm happy, I feel like I shouldn't be.
Yeah, I understand.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's, and I wonder if what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can pick that apart. And I wonder, and
Well,
I see,
I'm gonna stop you for a second. Okay, so you just laid out a whole textbook on suffering and on internal work and advanced personal development, self-development. You yourself are an advanced human being, and you have a very high frequency, and you are also what I like to call a grinder, meaning that you don't stop. You don't
that's
stop.
not an option.
Yeah, exactly. You don't stop, and you don't give yourself a break ever. I have to make you take a break.
Well, you try to.
I try. Yeah, I try. Sometimes I have to sit on you. The point is that and I'm big and she's small, so sometimes that works, but not always either, because she does jiu-jitsu, so it's tough. The thing is that, you know, we always go back in martial arts, in science, in our own evolution, our understanding of things, to fundamental principles. And then we move out from those fundamental principles. So I always like to remind myself of the fundamentals, which is that you and I, we work from up, down, inside out, meaning that we take our highest values and our highest self and our perspective on the world, and then we drop that into our clear mind to find out what we need, and then we supercharge that with the emotional states that we have, and whether that is a light or dark emotion, an outward going emotion or inward going, we use those emotions then to move into our action center, which is lower end but still inside, and we take our inside truth and we present that to the world and create our ideal life. That's how we roll, right? As we are young and we become gray, as I am, you over time have opportunities to experience your totality, experience all of the things, the qualities that you have inside you. So part of that is understanding the range of your emotions, right? So in each moment, we may be happy or sad or depressed or anxious or in fear or paranoia or whatever flavor of the month it is, or the flavor of the moment it is. And sometimes the process is us just widening our range, because we spend so many days and time. If we come from the Western world, we're all about entertaining ourselves and being happy, right? So how often do we spend time with anger and fear and frustration? And when I say that, we may be an angry person or a frustrated person in general. I have lots of that. But how much time do we actually spend understanding our own depression, understanding our own fear?
I think we're very afraid of our emotions to begin with.
Yeah,
because if you talk to, that's why I'm saying emotional training. Because I have, like, one of my fallbacks, like when you're kind of low and tired and don't have a lot of energy to go on, then I have anger as one of my fallbacks. And it's very, because if you look at when you talk to people, anger is negative. You shouldn't be angry.
Yeah.
But I found anger to be my superpower. I love the anger, the energy it gives me.
Yes.
But then it depends how you choose to charge that.
Yes.
If it's to use anger in a jiu-jitsu fight and to just run over your opponent, it's very good. But if you take that out on your husband or your sister, it's not that good.
Yeah.
It's not a good use of the emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it doesn't build, it's tearing things down.
Yes.
And I think we actually often don't acknowledge the emotions. We have them, but we don't actually look at them and see what is anger, what is happiness, what is ecstatic. And when we started working on this, I actually had to expand my vocabulary regarding emotions, because I didn't have enough nuances in them.
Right.
It was angry or happy.
Yes.
But it's a lot between anger and happy.
Absolutely. And me giving you those nuances comes from me actually having all of those experiences. You know, I've had to work with my own emotions and gone through those processes because, you know, the difference between, you know, being celebratory and ecstatic
And happy.
And happy, exactly.
Very different.
And depressed and sad are different, you know.
And hopelessness is also a new level of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So all those, they're not just words, they're different frequencies of energy. And what you said there was very beautiful because, you know, angry is a superpower. It is. But if you're at home again and you are with your sister or you're with your mother of two, I like to use this example of two beautiful 4-year-old twins, using your anger to deal with them is probably not always the best thing. Sometimes anger is needed, but what if you are angry and then you have to act and you're around people that you don't want to hurt? You don't want to roast them. How do you channel that into something right? Right? You know, we like to use the word rightness instead of good, because good is seemed to be very positive some places, but from a lofty perspective, good means it's evolutionary, that you're moving forward with it.
I need to have a podcast about good later on.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
it's a very good, very important theme. So when you do this work on the inside, you learn not only the vocabulary of working with your emotions, but you learn how to express them in different ways because you chain them. And what I mean by chaining is that, again, our highest goals and ambitions, our highest self, engage our clear mind and then superpower themselves with the emotions that are available. And then we move that out into action, right? And most people are not even aware that they're doing that. The process is always there, but they're doing it in an unconscious way. So back to what we were talking about before, what you're working with, you have inward going emotions and outward going emotions. And this is something that I've never heard anybody talk about except for me, actually, because I realized that when I was sad and depressed and hopeless and feeling worthless, you know, it's very easy to know or easy to experience that as inward moving. You know, you're not out, giving lectures when you're feeling depressed. You're not out looking for social engagement when you're depressed.
You're not giving to other people. You're not the one that asks if you can help a friend out. You're not the one to take initiative to socialize. You want to sit alone in a dark corner, with your blanket on, and
with your eyes closed,
yes.
And you in a way have these inward moving emotions, and you become very self-focused, and self with the small s. Whereas when you're ecstatic and exuberant and you're celebrating life and you're feeling charged, those are very outward going. Happy is outward going. You want to share happiness and you want to create things around you and you want to stimulate your environment, right? Very, very few people are ecstatic and go on the inside. That's a different duality, which is a yogic state. And we'll talk about that later in another podcast. When we talk about samadhi and satori and all this other stuff, it's really cool. So yes, there is some kind of payback for living in negative emotions and being a victim. Okay. When people say, "Oh, it's never good to be a victim." Well, as a victim, you have no responsibility. As a victim, if people are not giving you what you need and are not focused on you, they're bad people, not you. So again,
and their expectations around you also is lower.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if I'm going and depressed, you're not expecting me to do the extra at work. You're not I'm not expected to be the light of the party. That's not expected of you.
Yeah.
That you show up is more than enough.
Exactly. And that's the thing, I remember I had a friend who was super depressed. He was like, "Dude, life's not too bad when you're depressed because people are just happy you get out of bed and take a shower." And I'm like, okay, that's how you want to live. But right then, it's not that bad because, again, you're getting some kind of a payback. So the question you were talking about or asking was really valid because, you know, in a way, if you're trying to escape the state that you're in so that you don't have to deal with it, so you don't have to feel it, that's escapism, and that's never good. But at the same time, going back to that state for secondary benefits is also weak. It's also not honoring the moment that you're in now. It's kind of like, okay, why would you try to make yourself depressed? Why would you not laugh at your friend's joke? Why would you not hook up to the energy that's positive in the room and try to float? Well, sometimes...
Because I just had to add to that, because that was some months ago. I can still remember, because I've been working on this side of myself for... I would say this side I've been working on for the last 4 months in different processes around it.
Yeah.
But it's been on that, I would say, a darker side, inward going side, which I before haven't visited, because I always thought myself to be on the lighter side.
Yeah.
And I've been ignoring the other part. And now I'm at the point where I can't ignore it anymore. And we were sitting upstairs, and I was dark and angry and just didn't want to laugh and didn't want to do stuff. And then I can't remember what happened, but you had said something or did something, and I started to laugh. And I said, and I blurted out, I don't want to laugh. And you said, that's a decision.
Yes.
And I can just remember inside I just go, shit. And bad words.
Yes.
It's right. And then to look at that I actually made a decision to not laugh.
Yes.
And to not smile. Yeah. And I actually thought it was funny because you did something totally ridiculous. Yeah. And I should have laughed. It was funny, but it was so unpleasant and uncomfortable for me to smile and laugh that I fought it back. Yeah. I started, and then I refused to continue that emotion and go right back into what I was in.
Yeah, exactly. But there are different phases in all of this. It's like, because I know who you are and I know what your process is, because we're moving in that direction together. I know that you are a person who has always been forward-focused, community-oriented, supportive of everybody around you. You take on way more responsibility than you need to, and sometimes more than you should. Actually, almost always, because you're always loading your shoulders. You're very strong, so you load your shoulders to the max, right? Thank God they're not wider, because it would be even, they're very wide. It's not that, but you're tiny, thank God, because you always are taking a leader role everywhere you are. You lead the room.
Everywhere you are.
There you are. Exactly. So that's who you are. So sometimes, and I call that the outward stroke. Sometimes you need to go on an inward stroke, if you think of a pendulum. And the inward stroke is to go inside, to do some cleanup on the inside, or even just some growth on the inside, and to turn the energy around so that you can exist in that totality or express that polarity that you are, right? If you're always giving, and that's actually something that many women do. They give and 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 they give. At some point, you have to also allow yourself to receive, right?
But that's not allowed.
No, exactly.
Because if you do that, you're weak.
Exactly.
And weakness, you can't be that.
Right. Exactly.
And a digression again, but I think it's very interesting, because that was also this is conversation we had in the past. Because again, I've always seen myself as outgoing, positive, smiling, on the lighter side of it. Yeah. And then for the last year, I've been working on depression and sadness and anger, and on the darker side of it. Yeah. And I was so sad. Yeah, but that's not me, and this is not me. And you said, yeah, but it is you. Like, that is correct. And I think one of the biggest thing I had to embrace is that, yes, I'm weak. And not just say, like you can say the yes, I'm weak, and yes, I can be angry, and yes, I can be hopeless, and but actually mean it and understand, yes, sometimes I'm weak.
Yes.
And that is okay, because it's a part of me being total. And that's kind of, like you say, with a lot of women, we are terrified of showing weakness.
Mm. Mm.
Terrified of, because in society that's a bad trait, and you can't be weak. Like a man can't cry, shouldn't cry.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's what that's what we culturally been taught.
Culturally we've been taught that you can't be angry, you can't have all of this. If you're not happy, something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's so wrong, because you are a total person. And I think with being more total in the terms we use it, like you have everything, you have depression, you have anger, but like I say, no, this is not who I want to be.
Right.
Instead of, this is not me. Yes, it is, because I'm sitting here and I'm dealing with this depression, I'm dealing with this sadness, or I'm dealing with this unfocus, or whatever I'm dealing with. But this is not who I want to be. This is not what if I could choose, this is not where I would like to be. So let's work through this, not past, because you don't want to ignore it.
Right.
You don't want to pass the gas station. You want to walk through the gas station. You want to walk through the bakery and sniff all the cakes and taste all the cakes and do that job. So it's so important to work through it, so you understand that this is something I have and I can be.
Exactly.
And sometimes, those things you need, because again, when you're inward going, you also are a better listener.
Absolutely. And you also have compassion.
Much more compassion.
People who are constantly happy are superficial. That's true. You have to actually have had pain and suffering and sadness to understand other people who are suffering there. But there's also another secret, and this is the power principle, and that is that any time that you want personal power, you must have polarity, meaning that the positive and the negative pole are there. That creates electricity. So the whole point is that if you don't have contact with your negative emotions, or your non-positive, your outward-going emotions, your inward sadness and depression, if you don't know what that is, you can't access the power that they give you. One way I explain this to a guy who's a giant MMA fighter, and this guy's beef, and he's tough, and he's bad to the bone. I can't use his name because he's my patient, so I'm not allowed to say it. But he's in the UFC, okay? And we were talking about this, and I said, so you want more emotional energy to train and do your things? He's like, yeah, that's what I want. I'm like, okay, good. So are you happy with your fighting? Oh yeah, I'm stoked. Okay, are you ever not happy with your fighting? And he's like, oh yeah, of course. And I said, good. So do you celebrate? Do you celebrate your wins? Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a very, very positive guy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Do you ever mourn your losses? What do you mean? Because in your heart, you have heaven and hell. Because when you're really depressed and you're really hopeless, are you in heaven or hell? Oh, it's hell. And when you're super happy and you're super celebratory, are you in heaven? Absolutely. Nothing could be better. I'm super stoked. Good. So if you have heaven and hell in your heart, you want to be friends with the devil too, don't you? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, you want to be the devil's enemy, or you want him as your friend? I said, what if you could reign in hell and in heaven? Would you have everything? He's like, well, yeah, totally. I said, do you just want to unleash heaven on your opponents? Or you want to unleash hell? Oh, definitely hell. Right. That means you have to understand which demons you have in your heart. Well, I guess that's true. Exactly. But you never take time to feel the negative emotions. You never take time to just explore them. And I'm not saying go into them on purpose to, kind of make things bad so that you can explore them, but don't ignore them when they show up. Try to understand them. Because if you understand them, you have contact with them, you can use them. Again, your emotional energy, whether positive or negative, inward or outward moving, can be used to charge your activities, can be used to learn about yourself and the world, can be used to become a better, more efficient person. And when they started to combine these things in their heart, they became much more powerful, and they made the breakthrough to the UFC. Right? So understanding that polarity is necessary, that understanding and being with your emotions, whether they be inward or outward going, is necessary, is the first step. Now, when you start falling into them and locking yourself into them, and it's one thing if you're not finished exploring them, but if you are going to decide that, well, I get benefits from being depressed, therefore I don't have to do shit. It's kind of like being a person who wants to live off the government and not have a real job and not have responsibility. Yeah, it may be freedom short term, but it also is stealing your dreams. So knowing who you are, I know that that's never an option. So when you ask us, am I doing this because I want, side benefits from it? No, you're not doing that. I know that for sure, like 100%, because I know what kind of inner structure you have. But you do also need to give yourself time to regenerate your batteries. And if you go too much on the outward going, if you supporting everybody and giving yourself and you spread yourself too thin, you will have a reaction at some point that you have to balance that out by going on the inside, right? So so very often when you have a very polarized personality like Picasso or Van Gogh or, Michael Jordan, they're very polarized. They have these almost manic depressive phases that they go through. They're achieving everything for themselves, and they become very self-destructive. And that's because they haven't become conscious of their emotional structures. So you're avoiding being self-destructive in the long run by doing what you're doing, because you are powerful, you are polarized. Become conscious there, become friends with the demons in your heart so that you can unleash hell on your enemies and give heaven to your family, right?
I think that's like I said, I think it's very provoking to many when we say that, yeah, but if you go on Social Security and you can't work, or that you have a disability, or you're sick, or you're depressed, or whatever it is, that you have benefits from it. I think that's very provoking to many to hear, because it's no one wants to use the system, because I have a reason for doing it. And I think that's why this kind of self-awareness is extremely important, especially now when COVID is happening and we kind of have to do this work.
And there are a lot of people who are losing their lives, losing their businesses because of the lockdowns and all of that,
And how to deal with that then and not stay there, then the inner process around it is so important. And again, a person that I think is very provoking to many to hear this, because again, you have your reasons and excuses, and of course, if you could have chosen, you wouldn't be depressed. But like I say, from my own experience, I didn't want to laugh,
right?
Because when I did, I said, "Oh, I don't want to laugh."
Yeah,
and then I'm choosing it.
Yeah, you actually choosing it.
And I think it wasn't conscious, and I didn't hear it myself until you pointed it out that, okay, so you're making a decision.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit.
Yes.
I didn't see it. I didn't hear it because I was so blind for it.
Yeah.
And I think that is what many people are. They are not doing it on purpose.
Consciously.
Yes.
They're not doing it consciously.
Consciously.
Yeah.
There is an unconscious process that they're doing over and over and over again, because although it's not pleasant, is giving them something.
Yes.
A benefit, and it's known.
Yeah.
We like known things.
Absolutely. The dysfunction, is often less scary than moving into the function that you don't know.
And again, people don't know that that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of the times. Or we're doing it because like I said, I did it myself 2 months ago. I said, I don't want to smile.
I don't want to laugh.
I'm like,
stuck.
Well, perhaps you should.
Yeah.
Because that was funny.
It was funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm often ridiculous. So I give you many opportunities to laugh at me. But I want to make a nuanced clarification here. We talked one time about escapism, and, drugs and alcohol and gaming and all this other stuff are often seen as bad things, but, if you're having a glass of wine with friends to celebrate a win, that's fine, But if you're escaping into alcohol to not deal with your stuff, then that's an issue. The same way is if you are depressed or angry, or even you're escaping into happiness. Now, this is interesting. I just have to make myself happy. I just have to make myself happy instead of and looking for happiness instead of dealing with yourself and dealing with your life. That's also escapism. So people are like, oh, well, negative things are escapism and positive things are not. No.
And we had this friend that stopped drinking.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's wrong stopping drinking, supporting that.
Yeah.
But one of his big joys in life was to, after a big happening, was to buy a good bottle of red wine.
An expensive and good bottle
of wine. Sit with his dad and enjoy that bottle and talking and having fun. And because they live in different countries, he doesn't see his dad that often. So it's kind of
not an alcohol problem.
It's not an alcohol problem. It's a way that he could connect and have a good time with his dad.
Exactly.
And it happens once, twice a year. So it's not a problem around it. And he doesn't drink that much to begin with. He never drinks, actually, anyways.
Yeah, because he's an athlete and he wants to be a world champion and all that.
So, but then he got so strict with himself that he said, no, I'm not drinking. I'm like, okay, why? No, it's not good. I'm stopping drinking.
Yes.
And then we took it up. Now, this is 3 years ago, and we took it up now again. Like, you know that drinking a lot to escape and to not drink to escape is the same thing.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because
but we asked the questions: Are alcohol bad?
And he's like, yes.
And we said, and my answer was, I don't know. It depends. I need more information to answer that question, because it depends.
Yeah.
Why are we drinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the reason behind the alcohol?
Yeah, exactly.
And the amount, and I need more information to answer, is alcohol bad?
Yeah, exactly. So the situation always comes down to, are you escaping? Are you escaping yourself and your own personal work into something that may be on the surface looking very positive, or on the surface sometimes it's perfect, though it looks negative. It can be judged by society. You know,
be taking on too much work, working multiple jobs, because when you get home you have to deal with yourself, for instance. So you're always on the move, because if you stop, you have to feel and see and watch, and that's scary or unpleasant, or like you say, you want to escape it. Exactly. So then you do it with a positive note, that, and people then always going to say, oh, she's always working, she's always doing it. Yeah,
exactly. It looks very positive, but you're just escaping home life, or you're escaping being alone, or you're escaping, sadness or depression or something else, right? So that's a very strong motivator for many people. But coming back to this thing about being disabled, for example, or living off of the state. Now, what you need to understand is that there's no way that I am judging or putting down people who are disabled and who are rightfully using their social benefits, because that is something that is needed. And especially with COVID, people are losing their businesses, and they are doing everything they can to survive and make their family function and all that. What we're looking at is the escapism, which is, I don't want to take on responsibility. I don't want to be of service to people. I don't want to participate in society. And it's really nice to get paid and not do anything. The people who are doing that could be doing something like working or developing themselves or moving forward in their lives, are making a big mistake. And that is escapism. And it's the escapism in general that I really feel is the root of true suffering. Because why do we actually suffer? We suffer, weirdly enough, because we are being motivated from the inside to evolve. Suffering is a mechanism of evolution. So as you're suffering and you move away from it, you escape it, then you're actually not honoring the situation and learning how to get better, more efficient in that situation. You're not learning how to become a more efficient human being. And that suffering, do you think it goes away if you don't deal with it? Or does it get more?
No, that's a beast that feeds itself. It gets just bigger and bigger.
Yes.
And it's not kind. It's not kind to you. Suffering is not kind to you.
Exactly.
I find suffering being very mean.
Yes.
Unnuanced, not facts-based, ego-driven on the bad side of it, and not. I find it's trying to really just make me suffer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes everything into suffering.
Yeah.
And it feeds on it. It's kind of like this thing that just grows bigger and bigger and bigger if you don't acknowledge it and actually decide to say, that's, I see you. Let's work through you and get to the other side.
Exactly. Accept it, love it, and respond. Again, we talk about the whole idea of being responsible for something. Do you have the ability to respond? And I think that that's really important in this situation because, when I act a fool and then you decide not to laugh, and though it's actually funny, you actually want to laugh.
You see on me, I wanted to laugh.
Yeah,
and
you started to laugh, and then you cut it.
Yes,
Yes,
I killed the joy,
exactly,
because it pulled me out from the suffering I was in.
Yes, exactly. And then you have the ability to cut the laugh, but then you also have the responsibility to recover from the darker emotion. And that's the cutting edge right there, So when you understand that you actually have that power, but there is a period when you're so deep that you're diving into depression, you're diving into sadness, you're diving into this for perhaps an evolutionary reason, perhaps for a power reason, perhaps for a balancing reason in your personality, that it's a healthy thing to be in that process for that moment.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah,
I would just to that said, I think it's one of the benefits and the reason why I think it's so important that people listen to this and start doing the work with it, which we will help them with. That's why we have created our new company, The Integrated Human.
Yeah,
is because this will happen to you. Like I've known people that have committed suicide. I've seen people that are escaping. I've done it myself. And to voluntarily go into it. Yeah. It's something totally different than if it's just happening to you.
Exactly.
And that's a very powerful thing. And that's why it's not a problem for me to talk about this, because it's not happening to me. I'm deciding to let it happen. Yeah. It's not something that's being done to me. I'm deciding to take it heads on. Yeah. And work through it. Exactly. Doesn't mean it's more pleasant, but at the same time, I'm walking into the fire. I've chosen to open the door. Yes. It's not that someone all of a sudden I'm walking and they threw a bucket of water on me. I'm choosing to walk into the water. I'm choosing to walk into the fire. You are making a decision to do it. Yes. Which is much more secure, because then I can remind myself that I chose this. I'm working through it. It will end. Yes. Well, I think, and sometimes you can see the end. Yeah. But that's when you get back to having a very good peer group that knows what you're working with, so they can remind you, it will end. You chose this. It will be good. Yeah. They're respecting and honoring your process. And that's just reminding you that it's a process. Yeah. It's not going to be like this. And again, you chose to do it, which is so good. And again, please, I'm begging people to make this something they decided to do. Yes. Instead of letting it happen to them. Because I think it gets much darker if because you can't, I will believe that it's much more difficult to be conscious in yourself if it's happening to you, instead of deciding that no, we'll be starting this process and working. Exactly. There's a saying that I use a lot. Choose your pain. You can choose the pain of working out and being consistent, or you can receive the pain of having a random sickness hit your body or being in an unhealthy state. So choose your pain. Be conscious about your emotional processes, or choose to suffer the random and unexpected consequences of your emotional states that show up, and you have maybe no relationship to them at all, and you don't even know they're happening. So a lot of men have a very powerful emotional body, emotional states that they're not in contact with, and they do random things that destroy their lives. You see that very often in people's midlife crisis.
because they haven't actually worked with their emotions, and their emotions are going sideways, and they end up doing lots of weird stuff. And then afterwards you ask them, dude, you just wrecked your marriage. You just, wrecked your bank account. You just quit your great job. You did all this stuff. Why? I don't know. Just didn't feel right. And it just happened. And I guess that's just what I did. And it felt natural at the time, but I don't know why. Yeah, it's because you were having lots of emotional issues.
Being a teenager again. And because you don't do any inner work, you're a victim of it. Now your life's a shambles and you have to put things back together. Now, that's not always a bad thing, but you could have piece by piece revamped your life from a healthy place inside you. Because I would think that no matter what, when you get kind of too, well, I'm very young. I'm only 30, so I haven't gotten there yet. Fresh. Yeah. But I will believe that at one point, and perhaps you have more experience in this area, at one point in your life, you are kind of halfway. So you will ask yourself the question, is this what I have now? Is this what I would like to have, or do I want to change something? And that question, I think, is very healthy, because then you still have the energy, money, time to make changes, big changes, like if it's your wife or your work or if your house and your husband, I don't know. But you have at least all the ability to do changes. But then if it comes from a healthy perspective
and healthy and integrated,
integrated and conscious perspective, you can take away the things that's like, to use the example of your car, because your car broke down. You had an old car, like a Mitsubishi from like 1980s or something.
Love that car.
It was old, and
I love that car.
Beautiful car, but it didn't work anymore, so you need a new car. And we were having this discussion about which car you should get, and kind of, as a man, and I know that because I would like, although I'm not a man, I would like a nice car myself. Kind of, should you get a Tesla or a BMW or something?
Get a supercar.
I'm like,
because they can afford it, right? It's like,
dude, you and like you said, this is kind of, you have perhaps one or two cars left in you.
Yeah, exactly. If I could buy a Porsche, I could buy a Ferrari, I could buy whatever I want. The thing is, I am looking at my life, and I know I love the things around me, and I'll take care of the car that I get. And maybe I have, like you're saying, that one car left to buy, maybe two cars left, because I'm going to have them and take care of them. So the point is that, what do I want for my last car? Right? And then you wisely said,
well, I said, you drive up and down from work, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That car. Because my wife has the other car. And
she's the one that drives. Yeah. She's going to doggy trainings and drive long trips in Norway to get to doggy people and do dog training stuff. Yeah. But you use it up and down from work, which is 15 minutes if you drive up and down. So perhaps half an hour a day. You don't need a Tesla.
No, I don't need a Ferrari.
Car that works. You're getting a Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, exactly. And which is an amazing car because it has the acceleration of a Porsche. It's amazing, and it's super easy and low maintenance.
Perfect to what you need.
It's exactly. And it fits. That's the whole thing. Being integrated and having good people around you in your peer group help you keep focus on what you want. And if you really absolutely positively have to identify with that race car, then do that. Like I just celebrated a 50-year birthday with one of my great friends who runs a huge hotel and a brewery and the whole thing. And he
actually is a creator and owner of Ægir, a beautiful beer company here in Norway.
Yeah, it's actually basically he's won the gold medal in the beer Olympics several times. The guy is amazing. He's created
some epic stuff.
Yeah,
and not that we're making commercials for beer, but it's very good.
It's amazing. It's a super great. It's a super good product made by a guy who just is Mr. Passion.
He loves what he does.
He does, and he also loves cars. He actually has a workshop at his house for his Porsches. So he loves tinkering with them and rebuilding them, and he has vintage ones and new ones and the whole thing. And he loves cars. That's like one of his great passions in life. So he should have that car. But me, I'm just transporting myself up and down. My passion is people in that way that I want to see things grow. I want to see more heart and love in the world. And my direction is different. He creates that through his other products. So he has his Porsches as his guilty pleasure, right? And he enjoys it so much, way more than I could.
And while his guilty pleasure is cars. Our guilty pleasure is cake.
Yes, it's
We love
cake.
cake and cookies.
Yes, we do.
And
Because we're
coffee
grapplers.
and a good bottle of red wine.
Yes.
So that's
wonderful.
kind of where do you want to use it? And I think,
Yeah.
but a lot of people that get to that point where they are wondering, like, okay, I have one or two left cars, because you kind of see that you're in the middle of your life, and again, you can't buy, normal people like us can't kind of, you can't buy a Porsche every year or a Ferrari every year. So you kind of, okay, now I'm doing it, but again, after 3 months, a car is a car.
And that's unfortunately, if it's not your passion, that's exactly correct.
That's how it is. So you think that expensive car is going to give you something. Well, it won't. So I think those decisions are so important, that you have worked on yourself, and you, as a young man or young woman, you start early.
Yeah.
Like we have a friend now that's starting her process, and she's 20.
Yeah.
And I'm so jealous of her.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I started when I was 27.
Yeah. Right.
I wished I have started when I was 20. And although all those years not working have given me a lot of experience,
Yes.
I also had to work a lot on the traumas around them, that I could have saved myself from having traumas.
Yeah.
Because I would be conscious while things was happening to me in a much bigger degree, because trauma always will happen.
Yes, but you recover so much faster when you're conscious.
Yes.
You gain this skill. You don't have to re-traumatize yourself to relearn the process, because very often people are getting smacked by life, and then because they're escapists, they escape the pain and the suffering from it, instead of realizing, this is what I'm doing. This is why I got the result. Kapowie. You know what? Don't have to do that one again. Oh, there it is again. No, thank you. Take a left. Take a left. Not, do not pass. Go. Yeah. So this is a very, very cool sharing. Thank you so much for the sharing of this process with us, Marit. It's very interesting.
And that's the important thing that we kind of want to get out of this podcast is, it's basically like what said, it is our everyday conversations. So if we wouldn't have had a microphone in front of us, we still would have had this conversation, because we always talk about the process we're in.
Yeah.
And the process we're in is always real, because that's what we're working with.
That's right.
And I think it's very important to get the perspective on it, because again, I've been trying to figure out if this thing I've been working with or on is where am I in it? Because it's not always that easy to see for yourself. And that's, again, it's very good to have a peer group. And if you don't have people around you that are working yourself, then let us help you and talk to us and join our webinars and join our workshops.
Yeah.
So you can work together, because it's so beneficial, and you can take every process you have as far as you want. But it's about the conscious decisions around it, instead of making the unconscious decisions like, no, I don't want to laugh. Because again, it's just pulling you back into it, and you're going to experience suffering, and you're going to experience trauma no matter what. It's a part of life.
Yes. And maybe you have less of that than somebody else, but you can be there and support your friends. So one little thing that I wanted also to address in this situation, you talk about peer group. What is the job of your peer group? Now, when you're feeling depressed or sad, it's about honoring your process. Now, if I'm trying to make you happy, then I am already making a judgment that what you're doing is wrong. Understanding that's very important. Now, if you're clinically depressed in a way that you're committing suicide or attempting suicide, that's different. Okay, we're not talking
totally
about that.
Different.
But we're talking about the normal process of being a human being. So when you have a peer group around you, you need a peer group that is going to be respecting and honoring your process, but at the same time holding a stable and good energy for you, holding the focus of moving forward. And what that means is that if I'm cutting your process, if I'm
letting me escape.
I'm letting you escape, yes, then that's an issue. I have to be strong enough to sit in the room with you when you're super depressed or having panic, and hold a loving energy and be present without falling into the emotions myself. So, in Norwegian, the word for compassion is to suffer with.
Mm.
You know, you suffer with your friend. So I don't want to suffer with my friend. I want to be conscious with my friend in a way.
Mm.
Right. And though it's a kind of suffering to see my friend not well, I have to honor and respect their process and understand that things are moving inside them for a reason. Now, what that reason is theirs. It's their process. So respecting them means respecting their process. But when I see that they are making decisions to continue pushing themselves into the dark place, then I can at least make them aware of the fact that they're making that happen over and over.
I think that's been, for me, been working on the emotional part of it for the last year. It's been very, very important to have a good peer group that know that I'm working with it and have kind of been there with me, and they have none of you guys have let me escape anything, but you also not let me escape into it.
Yeah.
So you always kind of you're not interrupting the process, but you asking questions. You are taking part in my life and making me move forward with looking at it. And I think that's very important, that you not, because I think again it's very easy if you have just friends. And we have that in one of our webinars. We talk about the difference between friends, teams, and peer group, because I have a lot of friends that don't take part in this process with me because that's not their job. They're my friends. They are the one I go to let all that work just be a little bit a kind of escape, but a conscious escape.
Yeah,
that,
you're relaxing.
I'm relaxing. I decided to go to Bergen to have a lunch with some friends, or having a cup of tea, or having a glass of wine, or having a cup of coffee.
Yes.
To just be with friends and talk about babies and the weather and COVID, like all other stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that's not my peer group.
Right.
It's a very, very good webinar we have online on integratedhuman.com. But if you also then have, again, a strong peer group that are aware of your process and let you have your process and not letting you escape from it, but not letting you escape into it either, is extremely valuable.
Yes, it is. It is. So I want to thank you for sharing on it, and appreciate you for being a most excellent friend, a most excellent team member, a most excellent part of my peer group, and the best podcast friend and partner I could have.
Partner in crime.
Yes. You're absolutely amazing. So remember, you matter unless you multiply yourself by the speed of light squared, and then your energy. But if you can't be energy, matter.